A very good morning, students. In the last session, we were dealing with the chapter 6 nuclear physics, isn't it? Now, in the last session, we have learned about what is radioactivity, how it has been divided into natural radioactivity and artificial radioactivity, units of radioactivity, the particles that is being emitted, that is alpha, beta, and gamma radiations, properties, comparison of the properties of alpha, beta, and gamma radiations. A very good morning, students. In the last session, we were dealing with the chapter 6 nuclear physics, isn't it? Now, in the last session, we have learnt about what is radioactivity, how it is being divided into natural radioactivity and artificial radioactivity, units of radioactivity, the particles that is being emitted, that is alpha, beta, and gamma radiations, properties, comparison of the properties of alpha, beta, and gamma radiation, alpha decay, beta decay, and the gamma decay. And we have also learnt about the nuclear fission and the fusion reaction. And what is chain reaction? There are two kinds of chain reaction, that is controlled chain reactions and uncontrolled chain reaction. What is critical mass and what is the importance of critical mass, we said, isn't it? Today we're going to continue with this lesson. So today in this session we'll be learning about atom bomb, hydrogen bomb, and the difference between nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, uses of radioactivity, and about the nuclear reactor. Now let's go into the session, children. So first we are going to see about the atom bomb. Now we have learnt about the controlled chain reaction and uncontrolled chain reaction. Remember, children, in the last session under this lesson. So in controlled chain reactions, now what will happen? The number of the neutrons that is released is maintained to be 1. Now usually 3 neutrons are emitted in a fission reaction, right? So in a fission reaction releases or gives 3 neutrons. Now, but in the control chain reactions, the number of neutrons that is released is maintained to be 1, and the extra neutrons are observed by the neutron observer, and only 1 electron is left to proceed the further fission reaction. This is what we have said, isn't it? Now, in uncontrolled chain reaction, now what will happen? The number of the neutrons multiply in geometrical progression, we said. So first chain reactions will give 3 neutrons. Further, it is available for the further few fission reactions to take place. The number of neutrons will multiply to 9 and 27. It goes in a geometrical progression, right? So in atom bomb, the atom bomb is based on the principle of uncontrolled chain reaction. Now in uncontrolled chain reactions, the neutrons multiply, isn't it? So this releases a huge amount of the energy, right? So it leads to explosion, right? Because it is an uncontrolled chain reactions and it gives a lot of energy in a very, very short interval of time, and it leads to the explosion, right? Now, if you see the structure of the atom bomb, now here in the picture you can see, now in the atom bomb, if you see the structure, it consists of 2 pieces of the fissile material. This is one piece, the first piece, that is uranium-235, and this is the second piece, right, uranium-235, right? And these 2 pieces are in subcritical point. Now what do you mean by subcritical? Now what we said, the subcritical, now we said that there is a critical mass, isn't it? Now what is this critical mass? Remember, children, we have seen in the last session, right? So the critical mass is nothing but the minimum mass that is needed to sustain the chain reaction is called as the critical mass, we said. And if the mass of the fissile material is less than the critical mass, then it is called as the subcritical. And if the mass of the fissile material is more than the critical mass, then it is called as the supercritical, right? But these 2 pieces are subcritical. That is, the mass of the fissile material is less than the critical mass, right? So to sustain the chain reaction, the minimum mass that is required is the critical mass, but here it is the subcritical mass. So what will happen? The fission reaction will not take place, isn't it? So these 2 are separated by an space, right? Now here you can see, right? Now when the bomb has to be exploded, now what will happen? This cylinder is injected by another piece, that is uranium-235, right? So if it has to be injected, into the void, that is the space, using the chemical substances, that is explosion, by the remote control method. Now once when these two pieces are joined together, now what will happen? These masses will become a supercritical mass, right? Supercritical mass. So it will exceed the critical mass, it will become supercritical mass. So what will happen? It leads to explosion, that is a rapid chain reaction will take place, uncontrolled chain reaction takes place, due to which it leads to explosion. So this is how the explosion takes place, or the atom bomb works. Now during this explosion, what will happen? Lot of, or a tremendous amount of the heat and the light energy will be released, and radiations that is released is very, very harmful, isn't it? And if you see the region where the atom bomb is exploded, a very high temperature and pressure is formed in the region within a fraction of the second, because it emits lot on lot of dangerous radiations like gamma rays, right? And this will also leads to the adverse effect, that is it leads to diseases to the living creature that is present in the region. Now this is regarding the type of atom bombs that is exploded in 1945 at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan during the Second World War. And this is the atom bomb which is called as the Little Boy. There are two atom bombs that has been dropped in the city, isn't it? So this is Little Boy, and the other one is the Fat Man. So these are the two atom bombs that has been exploded or dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 during the Second World War. Now here you can see that how the explosion takes place. Now here you can see at the two edges there are two critical masses, isn't it? The two fissile materials are under the subcritical mass, and when they are joined together, here you can see an explosion takes place, right? So at the two corners you have two fissile materials, two pieces of the fissile material whose mass is subcritical. So when it exceeds the critical mass, the uncontrolled chain reaction takes place, which leads to explosion. Now in the last class we have learnt about nuclear fusion reaction, isn't it? So the fusion reaction is one in which the two lighter nucleus combine together to form the heavier nucleus, and this was called as nuclear fusion. And we saw the examples of the isotopes of hydrogen, that is the deuterium. So when two deuteriums, which are the lighter nucleus, when combined together, it forms the helium, that is He42, right? So if you see the nuclear reaction, now even the Earth atmosphere consists of these small traces of hydrogen. Now if the nuclear fusion has to take place very spontaneously at a very normal temperature and pressure, then the number of fusion reaction would take place in the atmosphere, isn't it? So there is a condition that is necessary for the fusion reaction to take place, right? So only when the condition satisfies, the nuclear fusion reaction takes place. Otherwise, in the ordinary Earth's atmosphere, fusion would have takes place, isn't it? Nuclear fusion would have takes place, but there is a condition for the nuclear fusion reaction to takes place. So the nuclear fusion is possible only at extremely high temperature, that is the temperature should be in the order of 10 to the power of 7 to 10 to the power of 9 Kelvin. Only when the temperature is 10 to the power of 7 to 10 to the power of 9 Kelvin, and at very high pressure, only then the two lighter nuclei fuse together to form the heavier nuclei. So it is called as thermonuclear reaction. Why? Because it needs very, very high temperature. Now if you see the energy that takes place in the stars, and that is also an fusion reaction, that is the stars, like sun, it will also emit a large amount of energy in the form of light and heat, right? And this energy is called as the stellar energy, right? Now all these stars contains a large amount of hydrogen in it. hydrogen gases in it. So the surface temperature of the sun, if you see, or the star, if you see, it will be at very high temperature, which is very, very necessary, isn't it? This is the condition that that is required for the fusion reaction to take place, isn't it? Now, since the temperature in the star is very, very high, it is sufficient to induce or to initiate the fusion reactions of the hydrogen nuclei, isn't it? So the fusion reaction that takes place in the stars, in the core of the sun or the stars, will result in an tremendous amount of, or enormous amount of, the heat energy that is released, and this energy is called as the stellar energy. And if you see the fusion reactions or the thermofusion reaction, so this is the source for the heat and the light energy in the sun and the other stars. So the nuclear fusion is the reason or the source for the heat and the light energy which is present in the sun and the star. Now, if you see the hydrogen bomb is based on the principle of nuclear fusion, while the atom bomb, we said that it is the nuclear fission, isn't it? While the hydrogen bomb is the nuclear fusion reaction. That is, the hydrogen bomb will always be designed so that a high temperature is created and the pressure that is required for the fusion reaction to takes place, to explode, isn't it? So it is always designed in such a way that it creates very high temperature and pressure, which is necessary condition for the fusion reaction. So fusion reaction will take place in the hydrogen core and lead to a large amount of the heat energy. That is, uncontrolled reaction takes place and very high amount of the energy is released. So the energy, if you see, that is released in the hydrogen bomb is very, very, very much higher than the energy that is released by the atom bomb, which is based on the fission reaction. Now let's see the difference between nuclear fission and fusion. Now, having seen what is nuclear fission and fusion reaction, let's see the difference between the nuclear fission and fusion reaction. Now, what is fission reaction? The breaking up of the heavier nucleus into smaller nucleus is called as the fission, that we have learnt it, isn't it? And fusion also, we said that the lighter nuclei combine together to form the heavier nuclei, right? And if you see the condition that is required, it can perform at very normal temperature, that is the fission reaction. And if you see the fusion reaction, I just now said that it needs a very high temperature and pressure. So this is the condition for the fusion reaction. Now here alpha, beta, gamma radiation will be emitted. Here the alpha rays, positrons, neutrinos are emitted, right? And fission reaction leads to emission of the gamma radiations, which leads to the mutation in the sense there is a change in the number of chromosomes, isn't it? The shape of the chromosomes or the number of chromosomes that we have learnt, isn't it, in the heredity lesson, which causes the genetic transformation. And here only the light and the heat energy will be emitted and no radiations, like no harmful radiations like gamma radiations will be emitted. So this is the difference between fission and fusion reactions, and this is very, very important question. This is a very, very important 4-mark question. Now let's see the uses of radioactivity. Now we said that certain elements emits the radiation, isn't it? And these elements are called as the radioactive elements, and the phenomena is called as radioactivity, right? So many radioisotopes are obtained from this phenomena, that is radioactivity, and these radioisotopes has variety of applications in the field of medicine, agriculture, you can say, or industries, archaeological research, medicine, and also as a wide application in the industry, right? And if you see the application in the field of agriculture, the radioisotopes, that is phosphorus 35, will increase the productivity of the crops, to increase the yield of the crops, right? And the radiations from the radioisotopes can be used to kill the insects, parasites if any present, and this will lead to the prevention of the wastage of the agricultural products, you can say. And a very small dose of the radiation can prevent sprouting, spoiling of the onions, potatoes, grams. So these are onions and grams. If you see potatoes, they sprout very easily, isn't it? A small amount of radiation is given so that it avoids the sprouting and the spoiling of the onions. Now cereals, if you see, these are exposed to radiations, so they maintain the freshness beyond their normal life. So it increases the shelf life of the cereals, and it also enhances the storage time. Now if you see the application in the field of medicine, it has variety of application in the field of medicine, and normally the medical applications of the radioactive isotopes is divided into two parts. One is the diagnosis, the other one is the therapy. Diagnosis in the sense to detect the disease, and the therapy is the treatment of the disease. Now if you see the radioisotopes, it is used in traces, that is in very minute amount, to diagnose the circulatory disorders, if any present, defects in the bone metabolism, to locate the tumors, cancer tumors. For example, if you see the isotopes of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, so these are mostly used in traces to detect the diseases or used in the therapy. Now if you see sodium, that is radiosodium, that is Na24, these are used to see the effective functioning of the heart. And iodine 131, here you can see in the picture also, it is used to treat the disease which is called as the goiter, that is the swelling of the thyroid glands takes place, isn't it? And iron 59, this is one of the radioisotopes which is used to treat or to diagnose the anemia. Phosphorus 32, so this is one of the radioactive isotopes which is used to treat the skin diseases, if any. Radio gold, that is Au gold, right, 198, is also used in the treatment of the skin cancer, especially, you can say. And the radiations, it is also used to sterilize the surgical devices like knives, scissors, etc., and prevent it from the microbes. Cobalt 60, it is used in the treatment of skin cancer. And radiations, if you see, the radiations of this radioisotopes is used to sterilize the surgical devices so that it can kill the germs and the microbes, if any. Now what are the applications in the industry? In industry, radioactive isotopes are used to detect the manufacturing defect, that is cracks, leaks, any. If there are very huge pipes which is used in the industries, the cracks and the leaks can be detected using this radioisotopes, right? Packing faults, if any, can be identified using this radioisotopes. This californium 252, it is used in the airlines to detect the explosives in the luggage. Americium 241, it is used in the industries as a smoke detector. It can detect the smokes. For the uniform thickness while rolling steel or paper, and also to determine the oil wells, right? So, and mostly it is used as in smoke detector. If you see the uses in the archaeological department, that is archaeological research, this is used to find out the age of the earth, fossils, old paintings, monuments. The ages of these items can be detected using carbon dating, right? So this we have learnt what is carbon dating, right? And in radiocarbon dating, the amount of the existing amount of the carbon, that is radiocarbon, is determined, and it will help you to estimate the age of these things. Now let's see what is nuclear reactor. Now a nuclear reactor is a device in which the nuclear fission reaction takes place, that is the heavier nucleus are split into the lighter nuclei, isn't it? That is called as the fission reaction. So nuclear fission reaction takes place, and this control chain reaction is taking place in the nuclear reactor, and the controlled and the self-sustained chain reactions will help to produce the electricity. And if you see the first nuclear reactor, it was built in 1942 in Chicago, USA. And there are many types of nuclear reactor. Example, you can say breeder reactor, fast breeder reactor, pressurized water reactor, pressurized heavy water reactor, boiling water reactor, cool water reactor, gas cooled reactor, fusion reactor, thermal reactor. So these are the types of the reactors which is used in different places in the world, right? And if you see the components, here we are going to see the components in the working of the nuclear reactor. If you see the components, there are most essential components, nearly about 5 important components. The first one is the fuel, right? Fuel is very, very essential. That is the nuclear, heavy nuclei. For example, uranium is the fuel here, isn't it? So that is that undergoes the fission reaction, isn't it? Then the moderator, control rods, coolant, and the protection wall, right? So these are the components of the nuclear reactor. Now this nuclear reactor is helpful in the generation of the electricity. That is, the fission, nuclear fission reaction is used in a constructive way. Now let's see the parts one by one. And if you see the nuclear reactor, it consists of major 3 components. One is the reactor core and the pump. The next one is the heat exchanger, right? And here the fusion reaction takes place, and this is made to heat up or boil the water, right? So this is used to boil the water, which produces steam, and this steam is used to run the turbine and in order to produce the electricity, right? So this is how the process takes place. Let's go in detail. The first one we said is the reactor core, isn't it? Now in this reactor core, the fissile material, that is the fuel element, is present, right? And it is used as in, that is the fissile material, that is uranium-235 or uranium-238 is used as in fissile material, which is used as in fuel. Now if you see this fuel elements, it will be in the form of a rod, and each rod will be 1 centimeter width, right? And this fuel element consists of the fissionable material, that is uranium-235 or uranium-238, and this acts as in fuel, and the most commonly used fuel material is this uranium isotopes. Either it can be uranium-235 or uranium-238. These fuel elements are arranged in the form of a rod. This reactor core consists of rods. Nearly 1,000 rods are kept in a big reactor. If you see, in a huge reactor, if you see, nearly about 1,000 fuel elements are kept in the reactor core. So normally if you see, traditional fossil fuels like coal is used, isn't it? But in the nuclear reactor, uranium-235, that is isotopes of uranium, are kept in the form of a rod which is 1 centimeter width in the reactor core. Now here in the picture you can see how the reactor core consists of the fuel elements, right? And this is in the form of a rods. 1,000 rods are kept in the reactor core. The next one is the moderator. Now moderator is used to slow down the high energy neutrons. Now we know that the neutrons that is produced during the fission reactions will have very high energy, isn't it? So to slow down the energy of the neutrons, or to slow down the energy, that is high energy neutrons to slow energy neutrons, these moderators are very, very useful. Graphite, heavy water or ordinary water are commonly used as a moderator, which is slow down the high energy neutrons and provides these low energy neutrons. The next one is the control rods, right? The control rods are used to control the number of neutrons in order to have a controlled chain reaction. Now we know that the fission reaction gives rise to 3 neutrons, isn't it? And these neutrons has to be observed so that only 1 neutron is available for the further fusion reaction to take place. So these are the control rods that is placed in between the fuel element. So this observes the neutrons. Now here you can see that in the control rods, the few neutrons are observed. These are inserted in between the fuel elements. So here you can see that it is observed by these control rods. Usually boron and cadmiums are used. Cadmium rods are used as control rods, so that these observes the neutrons, and only one neutron is available to maintain the chain reaction. Here in the picture you can see that the boron and the cadmium rods are used. So these neutrons are available for the further reaction, for the fusion reaction to take place, but the neutrons that is present on the control rods are observed by these control rods, and these are not available for further fission reactions to take place, right? This neutrons that is available will regulate and control chain reaction. Next one is the coolant, right? The coolant is used to remove the heat produced in the reactor. A lot of heat energy is produced in the nuclear reactor, isn't it? In the reactor core, isn't it? And these are removed so that it produces steam in the heat exchanger, and this heat is made to run the turbine in order to produce the electricity. Normally water, air or helium are some of the coolant which used as in heat exchanger. The next important component of the nuclear reactor is the concrete wall or the protection wall, right? A thick concrete lead wall, right, is built around the nuclear reactor in order to prevent the harmful radiations which escapes in the environment or in the surroundings, right? Now here you can see that these are the fissile material that is available for the fission reaction, and it emits 3 neutrons, and these 3 neutrons induces the further fission reaction to take place. But these 2 neutrons are observed, so that only one neutron is available for the further fission reaction to take place, so that the reaction takes place in a controlled manner, and the heat energy that is produced is made to boil the water which produces the steam, and the steam is made to run the turbine in order to produce the electricity. So with the nuclear reactor we have come to the end of the lesson. So far in this lesson we have learnt about what is radioactivity, what is natural radioactivity, artificial radioactivity, nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, properties of alpha, beta and gamma rays, atom bomb, the principle behind atom bomb and hydrogen bomb, condition necessary for the nuclear fusion reaction, difference between the nuclear fission and fusion, uses of radioactivity in various fields such as agriculture, industry and medicine, and what is nuclear reactor and its working, isn't it? Now in the next session we'll be learning, or we'll be dealing with the numerical problems and the HOTS question in this lesson. Your homework for today is in page number 89. You have the detail questions. So in the detail question, the third question is, what is nuclear reactor? Explain its essential parts with their function, right? And I have uploaded the PDF. You can refer the PDF and you can copy this question and answer in the classwork and submit the classwork in the school office on Friday. And in the next session, we'll be learning the numerical problems from chapter 6, nuclear physics. Till then, thank you children. Take care.